The letter from Latinos of Saratoga was something that was sent to Ike. He just shared it with us so that we were up to date. And I asked him to clarify a few pieces for me. So I'm just going to share those things for you. Did everyone have a chance to see that letter? Okay. So the Latino community sent this request to Ike around some things that they would like to see. Spanish translation on the library's website, expanding materials in Spanish, library guides written in Spanish, bilingual staff at reception, more English classes for beginners in the evening hours. In general, this is not something that we would take on as a board. This is something that the library staff are all working on. This is just for us to be aware of. But just so you know, some of the parts that he clarified for me right now, some of which we have been aware of in the past. The library card application is available in Spanish. Anyone who checks materials out, there is a place to check what language you want it in, to go on the, what do you call that? The checking out thing, Trevor or John, what is it?
Self-checkout, yes.
Yeah, the self-checkout, that
So
you can, yes, you can read it in Spanish. There is a Spanish language material section in the children's room. He said in the past that we had a sizable collection of adult books in Spanish that did not circulate. So, they'll discuss that. The new DVDs, most of the new ones have a Spanish language audio track. So there are about 1,250 in our collection. There are about 92,000 items in Spanish available digitally on Hoopla, including ebooks, movies, and audiobooks. There are about 240 magazines available digitally via Overdrive and Libby. And there are lots of Spanish language films available for streaming on Canopy. And so a lot of those things are there. And then I know, Jen, you've been working with some of the conversational Spanish people who are interested. So I think some of this on their list is just things that maybe they're not all aware of all of the resources that actually are here.
can I ask a question about the website? So this is really, because I'm really illiterate with all of it. So like on my phone now, there's a translator. If I go onto the internet for something, there's a way for me to get that translated into a language I want. Is that something that how does that work with the website?
Right now, the website, one of the things we're doing with this new website development is making it a lot more ADA compatible and translation friendly. I'm not sure there'll be exactly how we'll be able to translate it, but it will be a lot easier. Almost probably as simple as you've seen on some websites, maybe English or French or Dutch or those different selections. This new website will have that full function.
Okay, wow, okay, great.
And how soon do you anticipate that?
We want to roll it out by the new fiscal year. Though that was in my report, so I'll just mention it real quick. We think we'll be able to do that and have that live July 1st with maybe a week or something like that. But we'll have a few functional things that won't be live, like we wanted to have the ability to allow the librarians to update their different sections. And that's sort of stuff that can be put on the back burner. So we're focusing on the front end stuff, the front page, customer facing stuff. Make sure that's all polished and working. So there'll be a few things that may not be functional right at the time of release that we wanted to have functional, but for the most part, the translation will be ready. There's stuff for the visibly impaired will be ready. That sort of thing will be done.
Great. That's been exciting to Yeah, that's up, right?
And what happens now? Does somebody get back?
So
to
Ike
us?
has already reached out, and we do have English classes. You know, you've been hearing about that for several months. So yes, he has reached out and we'll follow up.
Okay, I just, comment, actually, I wanted to ask, Jen, for your sense of how this works with, this request works with the discussions that I know you've been having. I was at one meeting that you had, and I know you've been working on these issues. Is this an ongoing project? Is there a way to make use of this group?
Yes,
Do you think for asking?
actually, when Ike reached out to them, he said that he wanted to meet with them
Great.
to carry the conversation, let them know what we have, but yeah, that's like a potentially a group that will help us move forward on the initiative, so it's great that they came to us.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a almost ready-made focus group.
Right, exactly.
That could be a real benefit to the library.
Correct, yeah.
Great.
Jen is here, obviously, if there's anything in Ike's report that you have questions about, just to summarize that, obviously, you all know that the library budget vote passed by 95%, voted for. That Jamie has started today, that the cafe is moving forward with having a soft opening of the half-day staff day in a couple of weeks or next week. Is it next week?
Next Friday.
I'm sure that Rick will update us on the HVAC piece that he mentions in here. You saw the architect's proposal, and it's just letting us know where he is, that he has been following up with his own performance evaluations and things with staff. And so that takes us to Jen.
I don't remember what I put, so I talked about staff day and staffing as well. All the meetings that I've attended. I actually have not much to add unless you have any questions.
I didn't have, anybody have any questions for Jen? No, okay.
Have you been appointed to be I'm confused.
Oh,
Under
the
other,
merit.
yeah,
I was asked to run for an open position and the vote is going on now as we speak.
okay.
And the fabulous thing is that my person who's also running is also amazing, so it's a win-win for this club. And I don't get it, which I don't know if I can accept. No, it's a great fund and it's also something, you know, hopefully this library never has to use this fund.
Right.
Can I just ask about the half-day training? I mean, is it all done here? And do you bring people in, or do you do it all, or?
We're doing it all. So a lot of it is reviewing, like our emergency evacuation plan, how to write an incident report. And then the rest of it are stuff like workplace sexual harassment training, that's all online.
Yeah.
So it's just a reminder to people that they'll have like a month to take the online training.
Talking about open enrollment, that'll be starting on May 22nd, so just kind of a big update day.
Yeah.
Really,
And these are different things, different years.
yeah.
So,
Well, so the half day is usually always our mandated stuff.
Right.
It's our September full day that we do a different topic and training.
Okay,
This is just a catch up on.
Yeah, this is a catch up on the mandatory stuff.
okay.
So you're more than welcome to come if you want to learn about all of our mandatory.
okay, so Don, is there anything in here that you want to draw our attention to?
I'll just mention quick the remote printing, which is a service we've had for many, many years, and it gets some moderate to low use But it is kind of a staple item around here for people to walk in. You don't need a library card, you can print, we charge the same as we would charge somebody with a library card to print. The solution we had is gone at this point. The service provider we had, for the solution, they're gone as well. It was a shop. So we're on the hunt for another one, and it's looking like it might be a little more pricey, a lot more pricey than we were paying for the current, or for the former current solution we had. So I'm still kind of looking at angles and different things, but it will have it back in short order, hopefully, but it'll probably cost us a little bit more to offer that service.
Trevor, and I had one question about the van.
Yeah,
How many drivers are approved for the van right now?
the only thing we have to do to be approved is give like a copy of our driver's license. and then we'll
Okay,
be
you
able-
don't, it's not another class vehicle or something?
No, exactly, it's not, we can
Okay,
just jump
great.
in there, anybody that's going to be driving it, I know the last, at staff day, I took people around in the van, so we kind of.
Oh,
around the
right.
park, you know, and did it just to get a feel of things, because the lines of sight in a van are radically different from the, your regular vehicle, because you're looking up at that rear view mirror and it's there, there's nothing to see up those closed doors, because there's no window, so you're highly reliant on your side view mirrors, which are wide angle, so I mean, they're really good, but just you have to take your time, and it's
Right.
not your car, so. Be cool. So yeah, but that's it. So we anticipate when the van goes out, just 2 people would be in the van, we additional staff, they would follow in their own vehicles. They're going out to a site,
Okay,
that's kind of it.
yeah,
And
it's exciting.
might I add that if you get close to her on the line, steering wheel starts vibrating, so make sure you're not falling asleep.
Oh.
There's a
Yeah.
few
Safety
things and,
So those late night events.
Yeah.
you don't wanna be in an empty van, on the Northway with the tractor trailer passing you, cause the thing moves.
I said.
I highly recommended excessive training, because it is such a big piece compared to your normal driving vehicle.
Right,
If you're not used to it, like you said,
right.
it
right.
changes your perspective a lot.
Yeah. And we hope it's out there a bunch.
Yeah.
So, all right, so is there anything in there, Trevor, that you wanna point out to everybody?
Nothing additional, it's just exciting, and we've got at least one site on the books, the Wilton Gavin Park, and I just wanted to make one mention as to why we were looking at the sites that we're looking at to start, which were Wilton Gavin Park, one of the firehouses in the Greenfield Fire District, and also Veterans Memorial Park. Geographically, they are on opposite ends of downtown and kind of out over here. And oddly enough, a lot of the people that are in these areas, if they're going from one place to another, they're either not venturing downtown all that often, or they're circumventing downtown.
Right.
And also because this is kind of a pilot, I wanted to go someplace where there was a canned audience. We kind of had a ready-made group.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how things go, how things operate, what we need to bring with us, what things we don't need to bring with us, how many materials and what types of materials we need to bring with us. So the Wilton Gavin Park seems really, really nice. Our plan right now is to arrive about a half hour before the day camp gets out and parents do pick up. So we'll have kids and families. And then we'll be there for a total of about 2 hours. So then the remainder of the time, we'll see other people that are in the park that might come check us out, see what's going on, just getting the word out, working with Gina to do that. So that'll give us a sense of how this is all going to work. And then we'll go from there. The Greenfield Fire, very receptive, and so right now, they just need to know which firehouse we would like to see about using. I also think Greenfield Elementary, as Sarah's talking to somebody at Greenfield Elementary out there, I think that school is under construction over the summer, and so they were looking to use the grounds for something. And so the firehouse that we'll ask about, it'll be, again, maybe geographically not right next to it or right, we won't have those visits close to one another, try to space them out a little bit. So, it's been really nice just to ask the question, hey, we'd like to come with this band. People say, yeah, sure, send us something.
Right, that's great.
Okay.
I think all of the trustees, can you picture in your head how big our geographically, our district actually is? It's huge.
Yeah.
So there are so many people out there and nooks and crannies of
Totally.
that it would be wonderful to be able to serve. Yeah, right, so,
Yeah, it's-
yeah.
it's exciting.
Okay. Catherine, you're next.
So I feel like I tell you every month, we're getting really busy.
And then we see numbers like 40 children's programs with 1,633 kids attending. That is-
And for those of you who like math, that's over 40 people per program as an average, which is a lot.
Yes, I know.
Especially if you think that a lot of these programs are for the itty bitties. So I think I mentioned in my report, we're just trying to strategize for the fall about how we can try and increase the service a little bit. Possibly we might be looking for more staff because you can't do everything at the same time. The most recent thing that seems to be turning back on for us is as the nice weather is approaching, we're getting a lot more requests for school visits to come here. Generally, the schools that can walk here like to do that if they can. So I have 2 classes from the Eagle School coming on Thursday. So we're working on that. In the month of June, we usually back off on doing our story time and early literacy to free us up for summer reading visits. I think so far we only have 1 school that's looking for in-person visits, but even 1 school is a lot. And we're working on promotional video for the schools that aren't able to accommodate us this year. Some years are easier than others for the teachers. I also, though, having done this for a long time, would not be surprised if we don't get a lot of last minute calls from teachers who are like,
Right now our class is free on this day. And that's not-
sub on Thursday, do you? So we're getting back, to talk about, we're talking about outreach. We're getting a lot more requests for outreach again. And, you saw a few in my report. We have the Healthy Kids Day at the YCOM. So, we're getting there. We're booming.
And is your plan to continue some of these outside programs this summer like you did last year?
Yeah, so our goal this year, for story time is to offer 3 per week. 2 of them will be over at the Presbyterian Church unless it rains, and then we'll move back here, whereas last year we had to cancel in the rain. So to kind of balance, the thing is, like, people say, oh, I would love to go to a story time outside. It seems idyllic and it's beautiful. And then a truck goes by and they realize they can't hear you. So outdoor programs have their own unique issues. So we're trying to kind of do a combo, some of both so that people can.
Great.
That's a question.
Yeah.
Catherine, in your report, it came up kind of as an aside, when about Anna Ray attending the Go Team meetup. And there was mention of discussion about LGBTQ books disappearing. I've read some of this, and I'm just wondering, has that emerged as a problem at our library?
I'm only aware of 1 incident that we've had here, so we're just kind of keeping an eye on things. I don't remember if I brought this up in this forum, but we have a browser bin downstairs that has LGBTQIA books in it, and someone, we don't know who did it, because we could see them, but someone decided to hide all of the books in the bin. So on the plus side, they didn't destroy or steal them, they just hid them, and we found them eventually. And
Like in the collection, like they went around.
yeah,
with the
behind the
different
couch, tucked away behind the shelf, shoved in the wrong place. I mean, we pretty, we found them. So that's the only issue I'm aware of. It's interesting because the conference that Anna Ray attended, they discussed it. And then I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and one of the speakers actually, she was talking kind of anecdotally about this because it is an issue. Like, we want to have these books available and findable But then when you make them findable, the wrong people also can find them. And she actually made a couple of suggestions that Anna Ray and I were just talking about that might be a good way for us to make these books available and findable, but not, you know. And there's also like a whole issue of how discreet you want to be. Like, you don't want to necessarily put a big rainbow sticker on every book like this because someone doesn't want to take that home, right? Because it's so identifiable. So
Exactly.
we're trying to be really thoughtful about it, but yeah, we're keeping our eyes peeled. Like I said, I'm only younger.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions? So, Jean, we will not expect you to give us the adult services report.
Wonderful. So much to learn, so many new people to meet, but I'm coming from Maple Avenue Middle School, so I feel like I know the community pretty well and just excited to serve the community in a new capacity. So,
Great.
yeah, you'll hear more from me next month.
Okay. Well, enjoy the settling in and. Is there anything in that report that anybody has questions about that someone else here is there for you? No. Rick, I just signed a big check.
Yeah, essentially that job is really complete. There just has to be a manufacturer's rep to check out the controls. The largest unit, the control section didn't work as cleanly with the interface from our offsite controls people. And they did a little rewiring and I just asked some questions because of the amount of money involved to make sure that the safety protocols for shutdowns and power all work consecutively, so we don't destroy or burn something out because it's not being done in the manner that was originally intended. But other than that, that job is done.
Great.
They put in the
That must
doors.
feel good.
You know, I think they, worked hard at trying to make us happy. They're good communicators. Until the very end here, it's been a little challenge because they're getting ready for the schools to go and everybody is like high-end. Doing the public work. The rest of the things, and you can see that we changed out some lights to LEDs. That's a huge piece for us. As you know, the year before, we changed all the parking lot stuff. The hard part is with these new contracts, you have to be wary that you get a certain range, and if you go below that range, you pay the minimum. So you average it down so that range goes lower, so you don't pay anything for it. You just have to be a little more patient and aware of what your usage numbers are. And I track that stuff. It's just that in the last rounds of contracts, some people lost some serious money, so they're not willing to do that anymore. It's all about revenue. The margins are tighter, so
Right.
they're very creative in their wordings. But other than that, maintenance is extremely busy with the change of season. More building stuff going on, and we have some new people starting, so we're trying to get them acclimated and trained and work with the different groups, and it's busy.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay. So Kelly, so you have some people you want us to appoint, or one anyway, John?
We have a new building monitor starting. That's the only person that we need to appoint for this meeting. We're still recruiting, so librarian, one for adult services. We have canvassed and have the applications. So we're gonna start, now that Janie's here, we're gonna start scheduling those interviews for this week, next week.
Great.
And then we are currently accepting applications for the principal account clerk. So I went to the civil service meeting, that got approved by them, for that new position we talked about.
Great.
So we're accepting applications for that. There is, I think I'm busier now than I've ever been in my whole life. Yeah, because we have, obviously paid the paycheck switch over. So that's been going well. We sent out the email to all staff to set up their accounts, where there's been some glitches with, emails getting sent to the Barracuda thing, this is spam essentially, a few different things that we're trying to work through. So I just, everybody's been relatively patient, we're gonna do that. And then the new sexual harassment policy finally came out from the state. So I had to update our policy, so I added that to the.
Yes, yep, we did, and so that, we'll discuss it when we get to it, but
Yes.
basically that language, all that new language in red is new language from the
Yes,
state.
yeah, and it's essentially, you've read both, it's much more detailed, it goes into detail about intent and what that means, so it's a great, it's a lengthy policy, but it's needed.
It's right, clarifying, okay.
I didn't say in my report, but open enrollment is, we're getting that all situated. So that's supposed to start on May 22nd. And then, of course, onboarded Jamie today, and also the building maintenance worker today. We have John starting Wednesday. So a lot going on.
Yeah,
A lot going on.
So do you want, since we're in your report right now, why don't we, I'll make a motion to appoint John Swanson as building monitor effective May 10th, 2023. So second, Carol, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And then, are you okay with us going through the rest of the agenda? Kelly, getting to that harassment policy again? Okay. We have no special committee reports. So we're in unfinished business, the streaming of our meetings. So as a follow-up to last month's conversation, it seemed as though we were all in favor of beginning to stream the meetings. And Don, you saw his follow-up report about the audio quality, and so that's part of what we're trying tonight, and moving the tables in a little bit. We, the meetings will be streamed live. We will not, no one will be monitoring them for public comments or anything unless we're in that other category of it being a remote situation for trustees. So does anyone have any other questions about that process? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve that we will begin live streaming our meetings next month?
We're approving the.
Separate from not the resolution, just live streaming
Oh.
our regular meetings. Okay. And Terry would like to second that. Okay. Any other discussion about it or any questions about how that will work? All in favor? Okay, good, thank you. Passes. The video conferencing resolution, the draft that I sent to all of you. Is it okay, Terry, if I share a couple questions you have that I articulated for you? So this one. So when I was creating this draft, I used a lot of different resources. Many libraries in the state have already passed such drafts, so I had those to work with. I had the attorneys who, in the western part of the state, work with the library council and their recommendations of the template, and then I put those pieces together. Terry had a couple of questions which other people may have. The second clause, whereas the Board of Trustees believes that expanding the use of video conferencing to facilitate the attendance at meetings by trustees and committee members who cannot otherwise be present is desirable now, therefore be it, and remove it in the resolve. He wondered about the public, and I shared with him that because basically this resolution is allowing us to meet as a group to allow for video conferencing, the only way it will eventually impact public is that they are the way in which we handle public comment. So the streaming will be available for everyone to see, but our ability to video conference our meetings is really has to do with just the board. The next was the public notice of the meetings using video conferencing must be provided. That is under the resolved category. It's the third bullet. And I didn't, Terry's question is, do we need a specific date that it will be? When we give a public notice of our meetings, that is where we would indicate, and do you have that, Jen, do you have that I can't remember if we have an ongoing public announcement of our meetings, or if we do something every month that gives public notice on the website.
I think it's just in our calendar as a repeating, because we know when the dates.
Right. So my sense was we could put in here, since I had the requirement that if we were using video conferencing, if a trustee was going to rely on needing it for extraordinary circumstances, that they needed to notify the board and the director 3 days before the meeting, so that the staff would have time to set up any other pieces of it that we might need to set up. So we could change that language and put it in there, that it would be publicized 3 days ahead of the meeting.
Isn't there, in addition to the general calendar of meeting dates, we also post on the web the meeting materials?
Right.
And isn't there a date by which those materials have to be up or not?
I think that theoretically we're actually supposed to have the packet and everything a week ahead, which we don't.
Okay.
So, which I think is just because of the way it works with the months, with the time and the staff. I mean, I think that's what it kind of indicates in our handbook is, and all we have kind of asked in the past is just the things that are big that come up last minute we don't get, like Sunday night or Monday. But I think it's hard for the staff to get all of the things for the packet ready an entire week. ahead.
Your bylaws say 3 days, but not more than 10,
That we would announce,
announce a meeting.
and does it indicate?
And then
when
a
we're
special
supposed to have
meeting
our-
says 24 hours.
Yeah, okay.
So the 3 days.
So the 3 days would work,
Correspond.
yeah. Does it say anything in there about, it, I don't think it's in there about the packet. Someone else have another question?
Well, I would just say that if it's truly an extraordinary circumstance, you might not know 2 days in advance. So I would say whenever possible, or because if you're in a car accident or suddenly you've got COVID, you can't inform 2 days in advance.
Right,
and you don't.
but then I think you don't need, then you could just attend and watch the live stream. It just would mean you can't vote. Right, and what I was trying to say in there is also, I don't think any of our intention here is that if you're ill or you're
Right.
traveling or something has happened, that it means you absolutely have to be here. It's more that the ones that you could plan that you wanted to actually participate in voting and be present at the meeting, that we can set up the technology piece differently than just live streaming. But because it will be live streamed, it does mean that someone who is home recovering or something, it doesn't, yeah. With our board a little bigger as it is, that what Frank was pointing out last month, we're not in a crunch every month about a meeting quorum like we used to be. That when there were only 5 of us and a couple people were traveling, it was like, oh, nobody better be sick. So I'm happy to make that change, that the public notice, if we're using video conferencing, would be 3 days ahead. And then he just found a spot to be put a semicolon. So anybody else have anything?
Most important.
I love that. Do you know that I ran into the living room and I was so excited that since I generally don't write things of this nature with pursuance and whereases and resolved and, I was so excited. And then the sample notice of meeting to use video conferencing was just that. It, I'll work with Ike and Jen if they want to change the language or anything of that. That was just to give an example of what it would look like on the website.
So this is us still meeting in person,
Right.
just being streamed. It's not us meeting remotely.
So this is us, the live streaming is happening separately. This is us having the ability that something like the building flooded. And we needed to meet on Zoom, we can do so. That right now, we actually couldn't do so unless something happened kind of with the whole state and the governor,
But
gave us that possibility.
I still have a question about that. I mean, you and I had an exchange about that by email. But to me, the policy, the draft policy addresses extraordinary circumstances for an individual trustee. But I don't see that it addresses the circumstance that Nancy was just referring to, which is, if none of us, if the building is not available, if we can't have an in-person meeting. So we want to contemplate the possibility of the whole board meeting virtually. I don't see.
Well, only in that it's because the way that it says that pursuant to the New York State Open Meetings Law under resolved, the Board of Trustees authorizes the conduct of its meetings and those of its committees by video conferencing in accordance with the following requirements. So it allows us to do so because we're saying it would be recorded, it would be posted, it would be available, it would have public comment. So I don't think we don't have to give all the scenarios by which it as a blanket resolution allows us to have video conferencing. And it also indicates how the quorum piece works. And it indicates there's just this little section about extraordinary circumstances. So, that's the piece from just the beginning.
Right.
Pursuant to, that it just allows us to use video conferencing to conduct meetings. And then it makes us have to still meet the open meeting law requirements and things with the public comment.
Because it does say the physical locations for the meeting where the public can attend.
It says, which
Under public notice of meetings must be provided on the website, and this is the information that has to be included. And it talks about a physical location, or is that?
and is that so if, there were those two scenarios, so we don't, if everything, sorry, I'm being confusing here. If someone wanted to attend the meeting remotely, not under extraordinary circumstances, that is the scenario by which they would post, we would post on the website that Katie Capelli is attending the meeting when I go to Maine.
Okay.
And I then would have to post my address, and that is as if I have a secondary location, that the library board meeting is having a secondary location that happens to be where I am. And it has to be posted because it's an open meeting, which means I have to have the ability that anybody can show up. But because it would just be me, and because this space would still be happening, and the meeting would also be happening in this room, anyone who wanted to be present for public comment could still come here. You would just see me on the screen participating, and I would be allowed to vote, and I would be allowed to even run the meeting. Anything could happen because it's a secondary location of this meeting. This scenario, this video conferencing is that we need to be remote, or that a trustee is choosing to be remote and wants to participate, wants to vote. And that therefore they don't get included in quorum if the quorum is met with those who are together, et cetera. That's the difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just gives us more latitude to, right?
Right.
if we need it.
And because during COVID, we were all doing that because the governor had approved it, and then now that doesn't exist. Does it clarify at all or still not?
I'm still not happy.
You feel like it should state something?
Well, yeah, I mean, the very first bullet says trustees are expected to be physically present at meetings. And then it goes on to an exception, and that's what this policy seems to address. But with that emphasis on trustees being physically present at meetings, that doesn't seem to open the possibility of none of us being physically present, that all of us working virtually. And I understand that, the pursuant business, because that language, because that allowance is made in the law, but it's, we may have that in mind right now because we've been discussing this, but, 2 years from now, if we want to look back at our policy to see what it fits, I think it would be a lot clearer if we just state
That
explicitly
that we
that
that this
we
goes
also,
to,
yeah, that we also recognize the possibility that the full board might be very virtual.
okay. I can add that. Does everyone else agree with that?
Let's say that one last time.
So what Terry is saying is that he feels as though, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, that it indicates that we are enabling the use of video conferencing to conduct meetings of our board and our trustees, but that very quickly, it actually is creating the scenario by which someone isn't present and how they can participate. And he's feeling like we should have something that just says very clearly, if the board needs to meet entirely remotely, that is approved through this document. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm seeing it just in the language at the top, but it's easy enough to just put a bullet above
Yeah.
saying, but because you're right.
It's another exceptional circumstance, but in
Right.
this case, the exceptional circumstance covers the whole board.
Right. Did anybody else notice anything? Did you read it all, Jen, or anybody?
Didn't read it completely.
Okay, so, so the other reason that I said that it has these little blanks is because what we would do next, we aren't actually approving this tonight. What we would be doing next is a public hearing. And all that happens is at the public hearing is that I read it for anybody who comes. We post it that we're doing it, I read it, and then we would indicate those pieces and make a motion to approve it. So what I will do is I will just change these couple of pieces of the language and send it all to you. And if you don't mind just sending me back something quick, I'll send it, tonight or tomorrow. That yes, that language works. Does everybody have time to do that this week? And then, leads a little bit into the, the scheduling of it. So do you want to talk about that later towards the end of but I want to do it in June. And I want to do it as a part of our meeting. Okay, so we'll come back to that. So in new business, we already appointed John. We have the space proposal from the architects. Jen, I'm assuming you had these conversations too. So is there anything in particular other than having read it and some of what you've shared, and they give a very clear list of
I was more impressed of like things that we just kind of said like on the side or like captured. I was like
Right.
very impressed with the write-up that I feel like they understood what we were trying to say, and they visually, because they've been here a lot, they understand like, oh, that was designed to do this and it's not being used in the way it was intended,
Mhm.
so. you know, it's seeing that upstairs is noisy, we need quiet and private talking spaces all at the same time without the staff noises not to spread, so that we're not bothering the people trying to do work.
So as a background, this was related to the strategic plan pieces of just, you know, we're looking at our spaces and how things. It's been many years at this point, right? I mean, the last part that was updated, where there were the changes around circulation and there were the changes, some of them in the children's room. And even those, Catherine's talked about potentially having some flexibility again. What it indicates that this will cover, if you look at the architect's fees, is the conceptual scheme development for $12,000, the conceptual scheme revisions and phasing, and budgeting $10,000, structural engineering $3,500, mechanical engineering $5,000. Obviously, none of this has to do with construction. So this is just $30,500 for planning. Yes.
I'm just wondering, does the architectural firm have like special green certifications, or does any of that apply to this project? I didn't go to their website, I saw the .com, but I didn't have a chance to really.
I have not met them. They must be familiar with some of those.
Yes, we haven't like talked with them about like even attempting to be LEED certified. That would create probably a different conversation and planning.
Yeah, and I was also just wondering, are they the only firm that is, you know, gonna be submitting a design proposal? Yes.
It is my understanding that and Jen, you can add to this, but that he reached out to them because they have the most experience with this particular building and its design and
With this building?
this particular building that they have worked.
Yeah, they built it.
Right, yeah. And I think they feel like they have a good relationship. So he didn't talk about reaching out to other people, partly because likely then, I think Jen is right that they already have familiarity around where the mechanics are and what's happening with what spaces they've done before. And I don't know how often they work, particularly with libraries. I mean, I know there are architectural firms who specialize in working with libraries. I don't know if they have.
They do most libraries north of the kids. I don't even know. They've got a widespread thing.
Okay. So that's another part of how they
I
specialize.
think they might have
Right.
one competitor in the area.
And they do the
Yeah.
schools.
Okay.
So any quote we got from another firm aside from these two would necessarily be more just because they don't have the familiarity with building and the concerns of the library or libraries more broadly. So that would necessitate additional time spent then.
I don't know the answer. I mean, if one is competitive, who knows what another quote would bring, but they would have to, you know, read the prints, for example, where they've been working on the building in general. I mean, the one person, Megan, really knows the building, like they were walking into spaces like, oh, this is here, and, you know,
That's great.
they know what's behind the walls and under the floors and, you know, even things like, oh, this isn't working, we need to work on that. So just even for them to do a walk around, they're like, oh, this should be working. Yes, it should.
I know it seems as though it's a lot of money and, I bet that is kind of the going rate.
Agree.
It's just a lot, right? Are people comfortable with, they need our approval to move forward? Is there any other information? that would be helpful to make that decision, or are you someone that is uncomfortable about making a motion?
I know, I'm just thinking, like, if I were doing this at home, right, I would talk to 2 or 3 architects and get 2 or 3 different prices, but this is different. I might also go back to the person who originally designed my house, if I had such a house. So, you know.
I also, this is not, they would not choose, if there was a decision that we wanted to move forward with construction, that would be.
get
a-
estimates.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They would get estimates and then all of those things would be determined. That's what they indicate there, is the documentation that would be required, the bidding, whether you wanted them to oversee the bidding, the construction who would administer, kind of track the administration of the construction. Yes, Jean?
So to me, when I was reading it, it looked like it was a lot about how we want to divide the space and use the space, but also as architects, I'm always concerned about like the new age and safety and air ventilation and things like that, which may be implied underneath all of this, but this is not really, I never saw it stated. Maybe in the materials that they sort of.
I didn't see, I didn't see things about that. I mean, Rick could probably speak to that more. Those are some of all those changes in the mechanical pieces and are a lot of what we've been doing, and this filtering and the.
Those air handling systems are the latest upgrade to this building. And we are way over the number of room air changes that we would normally have. Our filter system, bar none, we're at the highest level for a regular city building. You know, that's not a hospital or a medical care facility. You know, it gets some of the best care and attention. But these new heating air systems that feed this building, this is the last project we're just finishing. And then it is way up there. These are very complex systems.
I
So
just know sometimes when you redesign the rooms, there's a different flow of air.
gonna change the airflow,
So,
but that room itself still has to meet minimums
Yes,
with
so
any
that-
kind of reconfiguration inside the wall.
And
So
that's, yeah, and that's, I think, I'm sure that's in this mechanical engineering and that $5,000 is that they have to still make sure, just like they would have to make sure if they redesigned a pod space for studying, that it has the proper number of outlets, it has the proper doorway size to get in and out, you know, those would be a given that they would have to sign off on.
I just didn't see it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It also says these services include the work of a mechanical engineering consultant to evaluate Saratoga, and specifically in this one, Saratoga room environmental improvements. And if other structural, plumbing, or mechanical improvements are identified, they will provide a fee for the development of those considerations in conjunction with the deliverables above. So
So it we had added on top of it.
and I think that it seems to me from what I'm reading about that is more that they're gonna come back with all these different ideas. The library isn't necessarily gonna choose to do every single one of them. And then they will evaluate where their priorities are. I don't think that this means that what we are approving is an endless supply of, you know, do whatever you want. But they need this piece in order to figure out how to choose what they want to do. And then for us to see what grants and things exist for those construction projects. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about it, Terry? Okay. So would someone like to move to approve this design services agreement from Butler, Groundland, Maze? Okay, thank you, Terry. Jean and Carol, you can have your pick. They raised their hands simultaneously, Denise. It's gonna be your exciting moment of which one you want. It was simultaneous. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. The changes in the current policy, the sexual harassment, anti-discrimination and other prohibited harassment policy. You will see that Kelly shared the current one. And then if you continue to scroll down, or as Jen's doing for us up there, the revised policy with all of the changes in red. I noticed a similar piece, Kelly, it's just really
It's-
detailed.
It's
just
more robust.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
it goes a little bit into intent. And that intent doesn't matter. You can't say, I was just joking, you know, it kind of talks about that a little bit. A little more detailed about gender diversity. That's about it. Goes into, investigations and how that they can be re-traumatizing,
Yeah,
victims sometimes. So just a little, much more detailed than it was previously.
how often does the state change? I know you've been waiting, because you've been mentioning this for a couple of
Yeah.
months. So you knew it was coming because they announced that it's just a they were doing, or it's on a schedule of how often they.
It's every few years. I don't know if it's on a specific schedule though.
Okay,
And all the attorney saying about, I don't remember them ever saying it was on a 5-year schedule or anything. Like that.
okay. And is there any changes you would then need to make to the, for, you know, the, what would you call it, complaint, incident and incident?
So the incident, well, the reporting is still the same process.
Okay.
And all of that would be the same. I didn't change anything about that in the policy because that didn't have to. Ours was pretty good as it was.
Okay, great.
The actual sexual harassment training will change. So, last year we did it through the EAP, which we'll do again this year. Their training that they provide us with the videos will comply with the new New York State policy.
Okay,
So there's nothing that we have to do, just everybody will take. the
okay,
training.
great. Does anyone have any questions about the new policy?
I had a question about the policy in general, because it's in both the current and the new one. And that is that there are references to the concept of protected class. And that sex and gender is one protected class. But the other protected classes are not specified in the language. And I wonder, is that
It's,
just because it's defined elsewhere, or?
I think, I mean, everything in red was taken from the New York State policy, from their model policy. So that's how they worded it.
I wonder if that has to do, Terry, with the fact that it's that harassment policy. I'm sure we have other policies.
So this is the sexual harassment one.
Yeah.
Whereas
Well, I know-
even
I know-
one
Fine.
would just do discrimination or something, right?
Yeah,
We have a separate policy for that, which would probably,
go more into the protected class.
yeah. Okay. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the new sexual harassment policy?
This one wanted to approve the new section here.
Carol? And a second?
Second.
I think Nancy, I think snuck it in that for that time, please. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and finally, one of the other things that I've been working on this month is in learning more about investments and our library monies. So I have been calling banks and getting information about, because we have public monies, we can only invest them in money market accounts or in CD accounts because they're non-risky investments. We can't just take our government money and just invest it in something random. And one of the things that has to happen with the monies then is in either a CD account or in a money market account the first $250,000 that is interest bearing is protected by the FDIC. The next $250,000 that is non-interest bearing is protected by the FDIC. And then any money that sits in the accounts for the library beyond those totals is, has to be collateralized. So in this case, Adirondack Trust Bank works with a third-party bank, M&T Bank, that collateralizes that money, so it's protected, so it's all protected. That is very straightforward from the New York State Comptroller of how money is handled. That is a given, that's gonna happen. We are basically not earning any interest in our accounts right now. We were getting 0.5% in our money market account and pretty much nothing in our checking account. I can't remember, it's 0.1 or something. I mean, it's really, really low. So I called around to, I think I've spoken to 7 banks now. And I've also spoken with Charles Waite at Adirondack Trust. And they are now willing to, read between the lines, that we can have a 3% interest on our money market account. And there is a 6-month CD option with them at 3%. I have found other banks, a couple of other banks that are willing to give us a CD rate of over 4%, or 4.25%. And the Fed's changed last week, so probably things this week will go up a little bit again. So Eric couldn't be here tonight, but I've been in touch with him about it. He and I have talked about it. And right now, the average monthly expenditure of the library is about $500,000, which you see in our monthly budgets reports. And so he thinks it makes sense that we keep at least 3 months or $1.5 million in our money market account, that Adirondack Trust. And that leaves $3.5 or so million that we could invest in CDs if we wanted. That's all not necessarily what we need to do. We could leave more in the money market. And then he said, one way we can do this is that we invest around $300,000 a month in 1-year CDs and do many of them. So they would come due consecutively. So we're not locking up. You could also say, we're going to do 2 or 3 smaller amounts or whatever. So I guess my question for all of you is, do you want to have a finance committee to work on this? Or are you comfortable with Ike and Eric and I working on this? What are your feelings? I'm fine with it, because we have Eric now, because it's not just kind of me. I've been learning quite a bit, but.
I just have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
So what is the minimum amount that, could be appropriated to either the money market or the CD?
They, none of them are having minimums. I mean, I think it was like $100. I don't think it was that. Some banks are requiring that you have a checking account, some don't. I obviously would only be working with a bank that can collateralize the monies. And there's a question about how much we spread around. And I don't think that Ike or I haven't discussed it with Eric, but felt like, okay, we're just leaving Adirondack Trust, although he was very supportive and understood that we need to earn interest, that I approached it from, this is our due diligence with public money,
And
that it needs to, it's
Grow.
significant, that how much it could grow.
so the Adirondack is the minimum percentage of interest of all the banks that you.
So there, no, right now, we weren't really getting any. So them being willing to move us from 0.5% to
Right,
3%. Most of the others, NBT Bank was the next one that for sure I thought we should probably invest in because they were willing to give us 4%. They were also willing to do a money market account at 3%, but it seems as though now that Adirondack Trust has come out, unless we felt like we needed to move money around, that we didn't need to do that. Saratoga National Bank, is probably also around 4%. And he suggested I speak with Ballston. Yeah, and so I spoke with their chief financial person today. They're getting back to me later in the week. As of right now, so if anybody has anybody else on this list that you want me to talk to, I've spoken to Adirondack Trust, Saratoga National, NBT, Bank of America, Citizens Bank, Key Bank, and Boston Spa. Yeah. It needs to be a bank that's based in New York. That is one requirement with the public monies. They need to have a branch.
And just for my own, I mean, I certainly prefer to keep it very local if we could, you know, I mean, but. I guess money is money, but you know, I'd rather. That even closer than New York State.
Right, so all of these I call the local branches of them, but right now. Yeah, so like our collateralized money from Adirondack Trust is through M&T Bank, which is based out of Buffalo, like they all, you know, use a third party.
And can you, I mean, for someone who maybe is, you know, a little less proficient in financial terms, could you just qualify the meaning of collateralized?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
what it does is, it is another bank that basically, in this case, is buying US Treasury notes and is holding and protecting our money. So it's saying that, and it's required through the comptroller of New York State. We can't just have several $1 million at Adirondack Trust just hanging out in Adirondack Trust, because it's government money. It's saying this other bank also is holding these treasury notes saying that this money is protected. So that if something happens to Adirondack Trust.
You still got your 7 million.
Yeah, yeah. But like I said, the state tracks all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so it also, so even though I told many of the banks that I was calling from with the library, I don't know that everybody gave me municipal rate. So some of them may be a little lower than what I was given initially. Some I called back to say, did you actually give me municipal rates or did you give me just a consumer's rates? So how would you like to proceed?
Well,
Do you want a committee or?
I mean, I'm just thinking, do you feel like you need a committee?
I don't feel like I need a committee. Yeah, I don't feel like I need a committee. I just, if there's guidelines around, like, I can't say to you right now, let's move this amount of money with Eric and Ike's and everybody else's approval to this bank or that bank or whatever. So I don't know I don't know how that part works. Whether we need to create, whether you want me to propose that next month with a list of this is what we're thinking of doing, or whether you want to give a range right now of we're comfortable leaving this amount in the money market and opening this amount of CDs, and you choose where they're gonna be. I don't have a preference about any of it.
I think I would prefer to actually see a proposal. I'm happy with you working with Ike and Eric.
Okay.
I'm very grateful that you've already done all this work. So you're not our expert. But you know, I think it would be useful for the board to hear.
Okay. So given the interest rates and things, if I end up needing to call a special meeting just to do that, are you okay with that between now and next month? Eric, you know, because there's Eric's perspective of doing them by the month and then, you know, which bank, and so we could come up with a couple of different scenarios.
And is there guidance from the comptroller or library organizations about those terms and some of the other things that, you know,
only that we can only do CDs or money market. And that right now,
Restrictions like they can't be in excess of a year or anything like.
No.
guidance.
and right now, an interesting thing with CD accounts is that the best interest rates are short CDs. Which has to do with just what's happening with interest rates right now. So in fact, none of the money would be locked up for long periods of time. Which was the other reason I think that Eric was suggesting doing smaller ones and then, but it's significant amounts of money that it could earn in and of itself. It's great. Yeah. Okay, so I'll get more of that information and meet with them, and then if necessary, we'll just contact you to do a special meeting in between.
There's
Yeah,
one last question, so any of that interest earned at some point, you qualify as like an endowment in public funds? To the library?
the library has an endowment, it's a separate account, like it's a separate, collection of money. These would just go as interest. And then could either be reinvested, again, you could set it up with that CD if you like that rate, would just reinvest at the same. If that same interest rate, or you could take the interest out and put it back into the money market account, and I think you can do whichever you want. I am going to though, I guess I would like a motion to have you approve that we change the money, that we accept there for right now, that we can get 3% on this money market account that we have. I don't know that I need more.
Or we need to change to leave it in.
So
That-
that last money right now is, yeah.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make a motion just in case we have approval? Okay. Do you want to?
I
Okay,
move that we accept the Iowa Library Trust's offer of 3%
okay,
interest on our.
and do you want to second? Sounds like, all in favor? Okay, I don't know if I need that, but let's start there, just in case. And there is collateralizing paperwork that then I would do on for the different banks that, I will also probably have them start that in case we did want to move money to any of them. They offer to help,
I
but
know nothing. I'm being very, I'm so impressed.
I kind of haven't known anything either, but I'm learning. All right, so, yes, Keith?
I'm sorry. So I was thinking, like, I think that our role as trustees would be maybe to give general philosophical guidance as opposed to like specific numbers.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, the idea, should we invest it in multiple institutions or should we help with lump sum? I think that there's sort of larger guidance that we could give you without specific
Okay.
this much or that much. you know?
Okay, all right, great. So when I get the information, and are there any other banks that I haven't called, that anybody that are connected here to our region that
You ready to know?
I don't really know, I think I can ask, but I don't know how that works. I don't know how credit unions work with
I don't know.
municipal funds. So I'd have to have somebody kind of explain that to me. Whether we can do that or not. Ike might not know. Do you know that, Jen?
I don't know.
He
I
might
don't
know that.
understand them.
Membership.
Yeah, I know it's a membership.
That's
Yeah.
the number.
Right.
Every
I
bank-
was thinking Glens Falls National. is
Yeah,
also-
that's the only one that I can.
Okay, that's easy to
I was
call.
thinking the First National Bank of Scotia.
Okay, I called them. I called Citizens.
And speaking of Glens Falls, does anybody know who the architects were for Crandall? When they did their big.
Not.
renovation?
Probably on their website.
Okay. So before we adjourn, next month in June, we are going to do the public hearing on the resolution. And I would like to schedule a 20 to 30-minute board retreat for us to, which is what we've decided we'll do in our last month of the fiscal year, so June of each year, that is just the trustees. So I have something for you to read and think about that will kind of guide our conversation. So my question is, do you want to do the public meeting at 4:30 and our meeting at 5, followed by our, followed by the retreat, or I could do the meeting, the public meeting at 4 and start our retreat at 4:30 and then our meeting, our general meeting with everybody at 5. Because you don't have to be present for the public hearing. And Frank kind of said later in the day is better for him, so I think he could probably pull off 4:30. But Terry told me he could be here with me to do the public
I can
hearing,
do
part, because we
either.
need to have minutes taken of them. Whatever everybody else, do you have a preference? Starting at 4:30 or starting at 5 and going later?
I may be down here on that day, so.
Okay.
Choose 12.
Okay, well, anybody else have an opinion?
Not today. I mean, I can do either.
We
right
can
now.
do a board, I'm sorry, a public hearing without a board forum.
Yes, we can do a public hearing without a board forum, because it's a public hearing, I guess. I'll double check that, but it was my understanding that was the case. Where did I move? I'll make sure, 4:30. Start at 4:30, so I would do the public hearing at 4. Or did you want to come to the public hearing? Let's do 4:30. Let's plan on doing the public hearing at 4:30. And and I'll make sure that I don't need quorum, and then we would go a little later for our retreat. We would do it after our regular meeting,
So public hearing, board meeting, retreat.
which is short. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Does anybody have anything else? Sorry to keep all of you through
I don't
that.
need to, maybe I missed it, but the folks who were concerned about the Economist and the Christian Science Monitor.
That was things that Trevor was following up with.
We follow up, I mean, I spoke with Lois, after the meeting. And she was recently in asking why it hasn't been fixed. And we don't have an answer for her, because the answer is either we can purchase additional copies, we can change our circulation policy for magazines. We just haven't decided which one of those things to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, as it stands right now, I don't anticipate us changing what copies we do and don't circulate of periodicals. Essentially, where some of the disconnect is that there are ways that this individual can get what they want. I mean, they can place holds for the magazines. They don't want to do that. They want the items that they want to be here in the library when they want them. And that may not be something we can accommodate. I can't say for certain, but
Okay.
Isn't it available digitally or even interlibrary? loan?
no, it's not available in Overdrive magazines. That's available in print.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I would like to adjourn our meeting tonight. Thank you all for coming.
It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah. nice to meet you.